Come on. George will show you the way. Come on, George. Business class. George.
Thank you.
First class. George is from the Greek word meaning of the earth. Hence Georgiana.
Hey everybody, welcome. Ginagay. Of course, we're going to acknowledge here we are for the last time that we're gathering together here on Gabanya country, because we pay our love and respects to our elders past and present who have cared for continually for the lands of this region. If you were at the other sessions that we've done, I just wanted to point out that I love a place, a region where they use Ginagay, which is welcome, as the alternate Pacific Highway, Ginagay Way, which is the name of the road that goes into Nambucca Heads, which is fantastic. And here we are together, gathering at the last point in the conference. I just want to explain something. Last year we did a session at the end of the conference. It was quite good fun. We talked about future wardrobes. We talked about all kinds of things. But it was raised, and raised in a beautiful way by Gail, that we said we have an opportunity together here as a community to speak, to find out some big thinking. What is it, the story? What's the story of the conference of 2024? You know, what is our big thinking? What can we move forward with? If it's not even just for us as a community, but maybe it's for the community beyond us to know that these are the things we're thinking about. Now, I think this year's learning is, sorry, I fed that back to the organisers. I said, you should get some researchers to do this. It'd be really good. We get some cool researchers in and they could do this last session. And I kind of left it at that. And then when I got the program not long ago, I opened it up and I was doing this last session and I was thinking, oh gosh, really? But we did give it lots of deep thought. And you know, as you understand that while we may be in a business of storytelling and change making, that you don't get to any position in our worlds without being strategic and without being deep thinkers in whatever area that we're thinking about. And also that I've been coming now to the Waste Conference, I think this is my 12th or 10th or 12th Waste Conference. And so you are my people. We are your people. This is my community. Probably more so, to be quite honest, nowadays than the television community is my community. So I'm very proud, as much as I'm saying that it was by default that I'm standing here. I'm really proud that we can gather together and we can muddle through together, and hopefully not too muddled because we've given it some thought, but also that we are the collective thinkers in this room. I think my feedback for next year is let's do this before lunch so that we have a nice big contingent of people. And I don't know how deeply we'll be able to get some massive overarching conversation. Let's not put ourselves any pressure. Let's just join together this afternoon and have a conversation that simply says, what is the story of Waste 2024? And let's see what we come up with together. So we're going to talk only for a tiny little bit, and then we're going to talk to each other, and we're going to write things on the whiteboard. So it's more like a sort of collective workshop than it is us talking about stuff and you are allowed to speak for 2 minutes at the end. That's not what this is about. And with that, I think Costa kind of started the story world when we were talking on Tuesday. So I thought it might be nice for him to have think. And the other thing is that not only did he start the story world, but he sat in on most of the sessions and of course lives his life deeply embedded in this world that we're talking about. So I'm going to hand over to him to have a few words.
Thank you, Kate.
I'll just sit over here, walking in front of you. So.
You're on our board of research. I do a lot of events, and there's nothing like the 4 p.m. slot at the end of a conference. It's one thing to do the 1:30 slot after lunch where people are fading because of food fog, or the 12 o'clock when you're standing between them and lunch, and then they're keen to sort of get involved and move on. The old 4 o'clock slot at the end of 3 days, what's going on? It's interesting, isn't it? Because we all arrived on Tuesday, and how good is that excitement when you walk in and there's familiarity, and then you're seeing the stalls and you're seeing the faces and you're remembering, you know, faces from last time, and then you're bumping in, and then the conversation starts. It's just like, oh, you know, Josie, yeah, good, great to meet you. Ramjo, what the hell's Ramjo? Recycle Smart, Giorgio. You know, that's what it's about, you know, and we lost a lot of that for a few years there with COVID, and it's just so good to be part of that energy. But at the moment, now everyone's ready to go, and we're going to go back. People are going to the airport. Some of you are heading north. Some of you are going to head south. Some of you are going to head west. Some lucky ones might go east. Hopefully not in the current that takes the plastic ocean waste up to Arnhem Land and dumps it on the beach for the First Nations Rangers to get distracted from their caring for country to pick up every 3 weeks the same amount of waste. You know, this is our story. And I think this is the most important thing. Every part of every talk is our story. And whether we like it or not, our part is the most important thing. And that's what I mentioned at the beginning, that we have industry, but we need to look at this as community. And when we look at it as community, then we can go back and realise that we're the amplifiers. We're in a bubble here. We've been in a bubble for 3 days. It's a serious bubble. And I mean, just to totally finish off the fog, they offer Dagwood dogs. Like, that's going to put you unconscious for the drive home if you had a Dagwood dog. But this is it. Like, we are the ones. It's us that has to get that message out there. And whether you're at any of the sessions, like these sessions are as limited to this Opal Cove. Sure, there's a bit going out online and they're going to be available to watch. But the majority of this feel that Cate's talking about, the majority of what if that we want, that's coming because you've been here and you've just been in the face of people just going, oh, you're excitable. And yeah, thanks for coming to that workshop session. That was cool. And, oh, you know, Hornsby, yay, Hornsby. You know, like, this is what it's about. It's about us taking this story and crafting this what-if story narrative. Not, oh, well, I went to the conference and wasn't that good and goodbye, I go home and we just kind of slot back in and maybe I make a phone call to Josie because there was some sort of business intent that I had to take back because I'm at council and they want to see some outcomes. This is the most important outcome, I believe, because the what if, and I suppose I'll finish by saying and going back to what I wanted to talk about, that what's our foundation? What's that end of the pool that we push off? Where did I get that analogy from? Anyway, I just thought of it. Where do we push off? Where are we pushing off? And for me, it goes back to all of the children of all of the species for all time. When we put that as the push-off, as the base, as the beginning, as the launch pad, then we can really start to amplify a message that has a foundation that we all have in common. And it doesn't matter if you're more in the council zone or if you're more in the technical zone or if you're more in the advocacy zone. It doesn't matter, because you need the stories of every single one of us, and that's why it's a community, because you can't just stand there on one line. We need these stories to be strong because we've got to engage. You know, just off the top of FOGO, just one thing. Imagine, people hear about FOGO, oh, and they hear all the noise about the people complaining. But where's the story about the good? Where's the story showing the compost and saying, hey, you've got a son that's playing sport. This FOGO is going to provide less injuries because he's not playing on a rock-hard oval, because that FOGO is feeding the soil and growing a good soft. And then there's our champions. There's our ambassadors. Not just talking about FOGO, talking about a circular lifestyle, not just economy. It's like these people that we engage with around anything to do with waste. In the business talk, we're saying that they're shareholders. Imagine every FOGO customer or every FOGO contributor, as a council, they're your shareholders. Yet, what are they being told? Very little, because we're not putting the money into the education. But when we change that language and say they're actually the careholders, and when we give them good story, then they care. And then they will stand up and go, I'll amplify your story. Just give me the frickin' story. Tell me some good stuff. And that's the what if. Because we tend to get caught up in this crazy world of ours with all the negatives, and for a lot of you living in council, that is part of the land. But we've got to have an irrigation system that just washes that off and recalibrates us to the positive, to the stories that are going to drive that statement. All the children of all the species for all time. Push off.
So, we're exhibitors, we're speakers, we're delegates. We have one common goal. It's ambitious as Cate's identified. We're going to try and solidify our thoughts and create a purpose for us. And there is the key, us. We are going to do that, not stakeholders as individuals, not stakeholders as industries or as separate groups, as speakers, as delegates, as exhibitors. We as a community who have a common goal, and that's a powerful thing, united. So it's a big, ambitious challenge. And to circle back to Cate's keynote, she spoke about deliberate optimism, and Costa's directed us to it again. There's a lot of serious stuff that happens at this conference. We're talking about some big ideas that if we don't get right can have catastrophic impact. But catastrophe is an interesting idea. It's big. It can be catastrophically good or catastrophically bad. So let's lean in, let's get grubby, push our sleeves up, and seriously, they're going to take the chairs down the side. So everyone, let's unite, let's come into the middle, come down the front. We're going to get up close and personal with the ideas, the what-ifs, the aha moments, what we've taken away, what's provoked us, what's outraged us, and what's resonated with us. And you know, there is an upside to being after 4 on a Thursday afternoon in a group of 25, 30 of us. It's that we've got the power, and together we're going to come up with something really special and see what we can't share with our communities as a whole. So that's us. That's our next challenge.
Okay, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling like that token frame filler on any press conference where it's like...
The policy advisor.
So it's been wonderful being just out that corridor. So I thought we would open up this garden of ideas and see what you've all had to say. Let's open it up. Okay. Yeah, I do. And well, maybe... Here we go. We've got it all happening here. And I think maybe instead of me chatting all about this, maybe we hear what you had to say about your what-ifs. Let's play it. Wonderful.
What if we changed the mindset of convenience?
What if business as usual was innovation?
What if we just went back in time?
What if we didn't need any bins at all?
What if we called the bin a bank?
What if there wasn't any FOGO? What if we actually kept our food systems within our communities and our neighbourhoods? And so food was there and food waste went back into that system.
What if we had a community democratic decision on how to deal with our waste?
What if we just buy less shit?
Okay, good on everybody. Well done, and a fastie. A faster is good. But kind of good to have that idea. And I suppose it's the thing of going, a lot of those conversations and a lot of the conversations that came up on the page are lots of activities, things that it's what we asked for, things that spurred ideas, or you heard something and you wanted to make a comment on it, or you heard something and you went, this is what we can do. But I suppose what I'd love us to do today, when we're talking about this story, is can we go upstream a little bit and think about what the biggest story about all of those things are. There's a lot of stuff on there about looking at the top end of the hierarchy, looking at that share, repair, rethink, reuse, recycle, reduce. You know, there's a lot of that conversation. There's a lot of community, lots of talk about community, not just us, but, you know, the community. How can we have that to happen? And there's, so I suppose, and you've been sitting in all the sessions, and you know, so if you haven't had a chance to say what if, don't worry, there's lots of things there. You know, and, you know, what if, well, you know, there's people who've said, what if we have a revolution? What if, you know, they're legitimate conversations, they're legitimate thoughts to be having. But what I want you to do now is just for a second sit and think to yourself, what's my story? What's the thing I'm taking home from this? Where's my big story of Waste 2025? Now, it'll be different for everybody, and that's okay. And some of it will be very, you know, about your business or about your role. But I want you to actually try and think and take that idea upstream to a bigger conversation that as a full community, this is what's coming from that. So just take a couple of minutes and think about it. We'll put a tiny bit of music on. Just sit quietly and think. And then you're going to tell the person next to you in a minute, because we've got to start getting them out and getting them happening. Here comes a tiny bit of music. Thinking music. I could do a little song. I won't do a little song. And then when you feel like you've got yours ready, just tell the person next to you what you're up to. Where's your story? What is it that's happening with you? Now turn to the person. Have you got it? Tell them. Doesn't matter. You can't be wrong. There's no wrong here. Okay, and once you've told that person, see if there's a couple of other people around you that you can tell them as well. So look around you, behind you, tell the story again. So repeat the story to some other people. Jump in up here and tell them, because you're going to tell the story again to other people, so we're spreading it. Okay? So jump more into this group. So this bit is tell more people.
Yeah. Give it to us. sure it's additional. Like, you don't want a big statement.
So lots of good conversations. Music's still playing, so we don't have to swap seats just yet. The next step in this communal us conversation is Costa and I are going to bounce around the room. You've already settled into groups naturally. We're going to find a way of a spokesperson sharing the general feeling of the conversation. So when that music finishes up, we're all going to find we've settled into probably 4 little groups is what we've observed.
Oh, don't.
It was a good song though.
It was a good song, but I was loving the sound of the crowd. I feel bad busting the mood. Anyway, your go, Scrap Boy. Pick someone's group and let's hear what we can write on the list garden of ideas.
Well, I think we should start down the back because the conversation here was quite interesting.
Rich.
And I think they thought if we sit down the back of the room, we won't have to do the audience participation bit, but I did try to get them to sit at the front, so.
Busted.
Okay,
who's got a sentence to share or a thought or a big idea to share with Cate and Durko? Who's going to spell? Yeah. Well, no, look, a little bit of aggression never hurt.
We can have truth here. This is a good room for that to happen in, I think. So let's be honest. Let's say what we're really talking about.
Yeah,
I think that's what this is
didn't hear
about.
from Tracy, but the rest of us had something to say.
Gloomers.
Doom and gloomers. Yeah. Okay. So, well, we're hoping that there will be a solution to the waste disposal issue in the future, which will incorporate energy from waste. Because at the moment there's no sensible policy around that in New South Wales, Miles, and myself. But we were also talking about the political framework and how perhaps to change the legacies. Okay, the legacy. Do you want to expand on that, Ron?
I was just saying how my parents' generation, when I left school at 18, I didn't have the right to vote. My parents could not afford to send me to university and conscription was an issue, right? I could have gone to Vietnam. My brother left school 3 years later at 18. He had the right to vote. Universal healthcare was in, free education and conscription was abolished. Come forward another 50 years, you guys have got hexed up to your eyeballs, housing is unaffordable, whatever. So the generation that got everything is leaving virtually nothing for everyone else. So how do you change the attitudes of somewhere along the line where people say, hang on, just as Gough Whitlam and all those blokes did in the old days, the system isn't working. It somehow has to come from the top. I don't think it's going to start from the bottom up. It's going to have to start with people in power making those right decisions. Free education, universal health care, whatever else you want to say, but if we can't get that right, do you really think people are going to be worried about their waste?
Well done, Ron. We've hit to the deep gold already.
Yeah.
Sustainability is not just a waste conversation, is it? How can we talk sustainability if we're not talking about humans and nature, and that whole conversation has to go?
Yes, which is kind of what I wanted to say, and I want to link this together, and then I think we need to talk about it more, and I think we need to get a lot more people involved, the young people, to understand the issues. I mean, I've heard some terrible things about battery recycling and fires and this type of, we all have our issues, but the more we talk about it, more understanding there is.
All right, now,
thank you.
This little group here, were you sort of all collaborating, working together? Is someone feeling confident sharing the general energy and the conversation here? What do we reckon? Yep, someone's volunteering here. Is that you, Joe? Yep.
We just had a little chat between us, we paired up. We went to the upcycling workshop outside earlier and was saying that it would be really cool to learn that sort of new skill about, upcycling clothes and repairing things One of us has a sewing machine already, so could do that. And I was thinking earlier with the what if thing, I feel like we focus a lot on, telling people what to do, what goes in the bins, what you put in there, what you don't, and we need to focus more on the why. Like, why are we doing this? What is the purpose? And then that will motivate people to do the right thing. It's all well and good to say this goes in the bins, but if they don't know why they're doing it, no one's going to give a shit and change their behaviour. So why is a good thing rather than what sometimes. So
Julia Sumner Miller would be very pleased. Why is this so?
I think we've got an addition down here.
Sorry, we had our own little group of two. My partner's bailed out.
Overwhelmed.
I don't know what
Overwhelmed.
But, well, we were talking about broader cultural change and mindset, and that we talk about so much disparate education, about litter, about FOGO, about yellow bins, about, circularity, about all of this stuff. But how do you create broader change that's bigger than that, that's just than really sort of topic specific? And my partner who was from Camden Council, he was talking about just going to Japan where there are no public place bins and there's no litter either, and people do take care of their own stuff or take it back to the shop. So I guess we were trying to think of broader, bigger picture stuff, but we didn't come up with any solutions. But it's, how do we get to that point?
Yeah, fair point, because we've got to get our headspace before we do action. Otherwise we're just taking action and charging down a road without having the bearings. So that's a good conversation to be dappling in.
When we're trying to frame these things, because we're trying to find, it's exactly right. Like, if we go to the how do we, right, rather than the what if, we kind of get stuck in the how do we, yeah? And I think this is when we can actually just, and because what you're right, is like, how do we do it? The next question is, well, what if we tried, what if we did this? And understanding that we don't have to know the answer, but because this is the discovery part of the what if. This is the that social discovery part, or the science discovery part, or industry. So I think keep thinking while we're talking about this. Like, what I'm doing is hearing you all, and then trying to frame it as a what if straight away from that, so that we can kind of go. That's where we start to get a story happening around what we're doing. So yeah, let's keep thinking in that.
Tracy.
Thank you. We got gossiping a little bit about, just sharing. We actually didn't get to our big thing, but we will do that. We'll get back to that. So maybe if I just share a little bit about what I've just reflected on. And for me, it's making it personal. And I take this very personally. I come from the fashion industry and I chose to move away from it because I don't want to be part of that horrendous problem. I'd love to help. And now I'm in mattresses. And what I'm trying to do is keep my fresh eyes, keep that sort of, you can come out of these things feeling quite depressed, but I want to keep a sense of optimism, keep my fresh eyes, look at things unconstrained, and the big thing for me is sharing your ideas and not feeling stupid, and sharing as much of my learnings. I'm in the R&D space now, sharing as much as I possibly can with people that have like products. Doesn't matter whose idea or whatever, how do we get it out there as quickly as possible?
More collaboration than competition.
People get really kind of cagey about people stepping or taking their piece of the pie, right? That happens in NGOs as much as it happens in any other part of the system. And I sort of go, what pie? There is no pie. Right? It's like, it's so weird. And I think that when we can go, I just think it's a funny thing. I just go, what pie? There is no pie. It is collaboration, and we can stand shoulder to shoulder. It doesn't mean that we don't deserve to survive, or we don't deserve to make a livelihood, or our business, if we've got it in small business, that we shouldn't be prospering, or in an NGO we shouldn't be thriving. Collaboration doesn't take any of that away. I don't believe it does. Not if we collaborate fairly, not if there's reciprocity in the collaboration. When it's all one way, of course someone's going to be collaborating, dying, getting burnt out. But if we have this kind of reciprocity that happens, that we deliberately collaborate, I think it's a really interesting thing. And I really hope moving forward in community we can really find that in our community, so that we don't miss out on this great opportunity for change.
I'm sensing a piece of humble pie, but moving on.
There's no humble pie.
So the sentiment in our group was really looking at the root cause of the problem and probably looking at government leadership in that space. And I'm probably borrowing a phrase that I heard here somewhere else, but it was we need to stop them making it so we can stop taking it. And I think that's that's really important.
Okay, we've got another speaker down the front.
Hi. With regard to the red comment, what if we actually were equipped? I would add to that, what if every suburb, and I'm capitulating it as a suburb, had a circular economy hub, a space with equipment, with skilled people who donate their time, and then we can upskill. So I'm giving you a solution, right? I want a small room, size for a portable classroom. It could be unused. My community has an unused church, right? It's got tools, it's got people, it's got a program, it's got tea, it's got coffee. It's a community who come together, and we call it a circular economy hub. So there's my what if. That's my dream.
Bring it.
Thank you. Bridge, we've got some good conversations over this side of town too.
Yeah, so Simon was talking about what if we didn't do business as usual, but we innovated. Minerva was talking about what if we designed waste out at the very beginning. And I was talking about what if we made decisions truly collectively. I think kind of being new in this industry and coming relatively recently out of uni, looking at government systems a lot, we do have a lot of the solutions. We know what we need and we know how to get there. But the problem when I'm coming into a council context is it's a lot about, okay, this is my jurisdiction or this isn't, this is my council or this isn't, and things can differ so much. But the borders that we create are created by us. They're not necessarily real, but they're arbitrary. Like even what is me and what is not me. Like am I bacteria, am I hair, am I skin, what am I? And if you can kind of start to break down the border of like me and you or me and them, then maybe you could make decisions collectively. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think I've got to pop to Costa because we had this deal that I wouldn't do all the talking, but you're next after Costa.
Well, I'm going to just serve myself up a big piece of creamy humble pie. It's all over my beard, and I'm going to pass it back to you.
Delicious. So it's interesting, that idea of collaboration. I don't know if you feel this, but we get to this conference and it's enormous. We do 10-hour days and then we conference over meals and then we have drinks and we share food together and we're sharing. And yet there's some big conversations. I know you feel this because we're all walking past each other in the building. We're exhausted, but we're energised. That's what Cate's talking about. There ain't no pie. The more energy, the more focus, the more collaboration, the more we work together and break down that us, them, and we become we, us, together collectively, the energy lifts and it actually powers things. We've been talking about it since Costa started this conference. Get outraged. We've been talking about the same things for 10 years. Let's keep this collective hearing and conversation going right now. So we're feeding back all of these ideas and energy to this board and we're going to refine it even more. Well done. This is good. This is us collaborating. We're doing it. Gail.
So following on from what if we design waste out at the beginning, what if we don't call the conference waste? What if we change our language? What if we say no waste conference or rethink waste conference or, I don't know, I know there's a brand, zero waste, resource, but yeah, a message I think coming out of today could be the name of the conference has to change.
I endorse that.
Boom. All right.
Rebecca.
We started our thinking about what if really personally, and I'm going to hand it over because, Hiral, your thinking about starting with taking responsibility I thought was really great.
Oof.
So what we were talking about is in the last 2-3 days, we heard from a number of people saying that these are the responsibilities of the federal government, state government, local governments, communities, and industries. This is what they can do and all. What about us as an individual? I mean, we are part of the entire system, and unless and until we as an individual start thinking, acting, behaving, responding in a way that we want others to do, I guess that would be the game changer.
Thank you. That's a big one that we're all being watched 150% of the time. People watch what we do. Our children watch what we do. You know, being in a public space, but not even as a public space, as an educator, if I'm seen carrying a plastic bag and I advocate against that, or I'm seen carrying a cup, disposable, anything single use, I have to, not I have to, that's just part of me now. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a big part of it, but not dumped on people as you, but no, we as a positive collective, not as a guilt collective.
Off-piste.
Oh.
Everyone, tech team down the back, let's all say thank you and hello. Thanks for making the conference happen. If you're not a theatre person, you might not know that the black is designed so that they blend in and we don't see them. But no show, no conference works without technicians, and they've got eyes and they've got ears and they're listening, and that's why I say we're off-piste, because we're over here talking and listening, collaborating. Thomas would like to make an addition, if we'd like to accept it, into this conversation about what if. This is Thomas.
Hi guys, I'm just your local AV guy around here.
Yeah! No just, Thomas. There's no just.
My wardrobe is not very big. It's pretty much just black, 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 black. But I do have a what if. Now, I'm only 17, and I've learnt more about the waste in the last, 2-3 days than I've ever done. Now, I work in AV. We do more packaging and stuff than anyone I've ever seen before. Everything is brand new, out of a box, comes sealed, plastic wraps, knobs, everything. Everything. I've never seen more waste, ever. And I have a what if about my generation. My generation has no idea about this. I did not know it was this bad. I did not know that there's a lot of smart people out there trying to fix the problems that you guys kind of put on us. Yeah, like, seriously, guys. Not cool. But there's a lot of smart people out there that are in my generation I think can help you guys. So I think my what if is, what if my generation knew about this? What if my generation could help you guys?
I mean, there's the investigation, isn't it? And I think we're all trying to investigate this story. But like, so if we're not telling a story where young people are, then they're not getting the story. And if we kind of don't have young people involved in our storytelling, then we're not getting the story right, if you know what I mean. Like, and so there's a beautiful council in, it's the Highlands. I'm just trying to think. It's like south of Snowy Mountains and Omeo, in that zone. And so they pay their young people to be on the youth council because they pay other consultants to do all kinds of stuff. And they don't pay them a monster amount of money. They pay them $50 a meeting to come for half a day. It's not heaps of money, but they feel so valued that the council has coughed up some money, and they also feel responsible. And then they basically, their youth council went from no one wanting to be on it to there's a waiting list, and that what the solutions that they've been able to come up with are really impressive because they've got young people leading the conversation, and those young people feel valued. Hawkesbury, I think, are another one of the council. I don't know if anyone here is from Hawkesbury, but I heard them talk at the, and you've got a big emphasis, even policy leading from a youth voice, yeah?
But I've been at council for about 7 months in waste, so relatively new. Learning a lot. The brain's a bit fried, but we talk about a lot about children, and I've got young kids, and if we were to look through their eyes and tell the story, and how does that look? And that inspires, you know, I had chills when I first thought of that, you know, like, not that it was my idea, but it's just a way of connecting. And everything, we talk about behaviour, and it's so hard to get people to change. Like, we pay people and we want them to change their behaviour at work, and that's very difficult. So the challenge is huge. Yeah, one things that we were talking about were just scraping back the top layer, which is the information, and getting rid of the BS, and what are we left with? And I don't know that answer, but it's, yeah, just so much information and decisions are required, and it's been a pleasure to be here, everyone. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. You know, I had a what if that I've been thinking about, and a few years ago at the National Landcare Conference, we were talking about we're talking about youth and the challenges that there's no youth. Where's the youth? Where's the youth voice? So we said, righto, let's start a youth arm to the Landcare Conference. So we had a day before, and it was led by Intrepid Landcare, which is the youth Landcare, and they had a day of speakers and youth. So what if we have a stream, or if not a stream, a morning? I think we can work it out, but let's have in 2025 a youth-driven component and get youth into this conference from 2025 onwards.
You might need to buy some colour other than black, Thomas. I'm just foreshadowing you might be out the front next year. What about the first class seats down here? Do we have someone? George, do you want to add a... Yep, come on, let's hear what we've talked about over here.
I'll pass the mic around to you guys if you like. What I've been inspired this week is just hearing about the programs that have multi-benefits. So say the Sebastian Foundation with their mental health parachute workshops, and then teeing up with eThreads to recycle textiles. So what I wished I had written on your bit of paper, which is what if, was what if every product had to either prove that or had to have secondary benefits. They had to have a benefit for people, a benefit for the environment, as well as just making profit, and just link all of those things. So I think people love those stories. They're really inspiring.
My partner in Durko World, who never comes out because he'd rather eat his arm than be at a conference, he has this plan for Costa, which is the whole world, which is called cost of living. The cost of living to the planet and your pocket, so that it's got these kind of dual purpose kind of conversations that we have. You know, we've just got to get Costa to have... We've got to clone Costa, so we've got a little bit more Costa time.
Yeah, I heard it began last night. Yeah, fairly rough attempt.
I wasn't happy with that version. I think I've cancelled that one. We've got to try again. Go back into the lab. Rebecca.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, Thomas, for that comment. I've had a number of young people approach me in conversations and say, look, Rebecca, we know this is a problem, the pollution problem. We learn about it at school. We're really worried about it, and we've done what we can, but we can't change anymore. And at the same time as we've learnt this, we see our parents and our teachers walking around with single-use coffee cups and buying all of this stuff. And I feel like we need to really engage the young people that are going to inherit this, who are going to inherit this problem. And I think, you know, as you said, Harold, it needs to start with us, and I think that personal responsibility is really critical.
I mean, how do we phrase that feeling about young people thinking, look, we know it, we're actually not in a powerful position to change this, and we see adults all around us still continuing bad behaviour. Does anyone have a way of phrasing that? Yeah.
I would phrase it, what if we amplify the voices of the youth? Because they're telling us, but they don't have that platform to actually get further up the chain to the decision makers. So we could be that amplification structure.
to say.
I'll just go the mic a bit.
That I think instead of going away and feeling that despair that you can sometimes feel that it's all too big, convert that into a little bit of angry, and then convert that into something very pointy and go for it. So let people know what needs to change. Drive that into something that it can actually be used.
A little bit of angry.
A little bit of pointy. And no pie.
Okay, if that's okay, I'll have two what if, which are kind of very stretched, as they've been mentioned before. So one is definitely around government responsibilities and laws. As you might hear, I'm French, and there are things that happen in Europe from a regulation perspective that could totally happen here, but they're not really even talked about. In terms of producer responsibility, for example, which links to the what if we design waste out at the beginning. That's one. And the second what if is definitely around responsibility, like how do we take our own responsibility? And I'm going to share something here that has made us really angry yesterday and today. We have put soft plastics bin in the conference, at a waste conference, and you would not believe the contamination of those soft plastics bin. We have literally found in one of them yesterday 3 pieces of soft plastics amongst food, paper, and plastic bottles. Come on, people. Like, we're waste people, and we contaminate our own bins at a waste conference. That was truly disheartening. So definitely personal responsibility.
At the AORA conference, we had food waste bins. And at the end of first lunch, because I hosted that, I took a photo of what the waste compost bins were and put it up after lunch and didn't say anything. Just put the picture up. And then the second day, I went and took a picture of those bins and put it up, and the same with the third day. And so that people could see for themselves the disconnect between how we make our money and what we value. And very hard to be righteous or point our fingers at a community when we can't get something not just right, but frickin' perfect. This should be perfection here. And we need all to kick ourselves off our bums, you know, and just say, next year, let's be perfect. It's hard, isn't it? So I'm emotional too, because it's like, it's just hard. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm in it, right? So, yeah.
Can I just say though, integrity is actually easy to maintain if we share responsibility. By that I mean, you know, we all learn this as a kid. Don't do something you wouldn't be happy to do in front of your parents, right? And then we forget, we check that out. Yeah, we're talking about personal responsibility, of course, but we have a responsibility to each other. And again, it's that idea of there's no pie, let's share the love, let's share the community responsibility for integrity. It is pretty embarrassing, isn't it? When we've got a conference on waste and we're not doing it ourselves, how on earth can we expect people who have other things going on in their world to model those behaviours if while we're here amongst friends, while no one's watching, we can't even maintain our own integrity? Karen is going to add something, I think.
A lot of pressure now. No, sorry, I did miss, if I'm being precise, the first 37 minutes of this conversation, so I may repeat something, but I was having a conversation with a council this morning, and a council rep, obviously, and he was saying how in terms of creating more hands-on learning and kind of guidance for younger generations, and also kind of give council a reprieve from so much of the work that they have within this space, to have more like formalised internships or like a cadetship or something within like a ROC or regional group of councils. I don't know if something like that exists because it's not my area of specialty, but
I like it.
Yeah, right. Well, there you go. One supporter already. The idea that, you know, maybe we can, instead of just in school curriculum, talk about waste and do the whole doom and gloom thing, give them more like hands-on entrance into the waste world which maybe gives them like a glimpse of transfer stations and landfills and CRCs and circular hubs as they become more normalised, and all the different infrastructures that give them that kind of diversified map of the landscape. And then they can make a choice whether they want to pursue a career in this space, or it's just gives them a better understanding of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kids in Year 10 getting onto a career pathway with a sponsorship through TAFE and through the councils, that they get a job and then they can move from council to council. These are all those things that we will certainly be looking into in Youth Waste 2025, or whatever that second word is. But that will be happening next year, mark my words.
Look, we're going to wrap because it's time to go, and you don't want to be sitting here forever, even though we could probably sit here forever. It takes us a while to drop into these conversations, yeah? Like, it's not like we rock up into a session or something like this. Like, it took us a little while to drop in. But as soon as everyone dropped in, the stuff that comes is amazing. And we don't get big chances to do this big stuff together very often. I don't think we're in a position just with the time to make a massive statement that comes from us as a group, and especially when we're such a small take of the big group. But I think all of those things are really, they're all valid. They're all what everybody is thinking and feeling. And I just think that passing that on to the gang who are creating the report, but asking for the report to be thought about a bit differently. And maybe while we still get a report from Waste 2025, that there is a bit of a story that goes on for 2024. Don't have to jump a year already. But maybe there's a story we can have off course, off conference, around thinking over the next couple of months, feeding back to all the delegates to think. Now, I know it's hard because when you're not in this, you just become obstructional to ideas. You know, how do you get consensus around some of this stuff? And we could have a look at that, and and everyone here, I'm happy to to take a photo of it, of that board, have a think about it, see if you can find these key sentences or these key stories that are coming from it. And then feed that back through the conference, and let's see if we can have a conversation. But I think what we've learnt is that this is a really worthwhile conversation that needs to be greater resourced than us here today. And so maybe what we need to ask at No Waste 2025, that we look at this earlier or every day, or at lunch together, or something, because I do think it's worthwhile pursuing. Do you think it's worthwhile pursuing for us to have a bit of a more general community feel? Yeah, okay. I know you guys are here, so you obviously think that, right? But yes, young man up the back, hang on a tick.
Yeah, I think if you did a few sessions, it'd be good, because there's often, in most of the sessions through the conference, a few loud voices tend to dominate the discussions and the conversations and the questions. So, to make it a space where people can more generally have a bit of input and have the space and the time. And look, just jumping back to the other stuff, one of my bugbears has been, and I think I wrote it on your sheet of paper, that I think we've dropped the ball in terms of passing on lessons of the past through to new generations of up-and-comers. And education, I don't think, should just be about the young people or the people new to the industry. A lot of us are at the older end of the spectrum, and there's still a lot of learning to be done and a lot of knowledge sharing to be done as well. But I don't know whether it's that there's no oral tradition now. I mean, we've got case studies, you can go and read reports, but I think there's still, a lot of information that's not coming through. Like, I remember Manly in 1997, the big Manly Food and Wine Festival had all reusables. It's 20,000 people come to that event, and now there are people trying to do reusables at really small scale, localised, and I've tried to find information on that. I remember UNSW were studying it and collating it, but things like that, I think we've got to try and figure out how to pass on better the lessons, I suppose, from the past too.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Lismore used to have like a wash van that used to go to all the markets 20 years ago. And yet the
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Still
and
hatching and incubating and
but that fell over because
constipating.
the funding falls over because we haven't got these sustainably funded models either. Do you know what I mean? We don't. Anyway, I'm not whinging because I am the woman of deliberate optimism. And I just want to say thank you for thanks for turning up, right? And that I think this year we were a bit better than last year when it came to stuff. I still think it would be really good if you want to be part of an end session that happens before lunch rather than the end thing. But if you've got something that you think this is a worthwhile conversation, we are so happy not to be these people. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, it should be other people as well as us that are kind of looking at this discussion, because there'll be someone who has more skills to be able to bring these discussions, these endpoints together. What you'll get with us is a lot of love and a lot of care, but it would be really good if we had somebody who was like, you know, a serious researcher who could say, this is what we're saying here. And to that, I think one of the best things that I did with this Fire to Forest project is that we had storytellers, scientists and researchers sitting together in teams. And it was revolutionary. You know, we didn't have just all scientists sitting over there and just all storytellers here. And storytellers, I mean filmmakers, writers, poets, people, you know, people who tell story for a living, and researchers. And the projects that came out of that were amazing. So I'm just saying, when you're working back with council, change the storytellers, change the world, not just change the story. If we want diverse stories, change the people you've got in your groups that you are working with. Everyone's stories of different voices and different hearts, they have to be at the table. Whether they're young, whether they're mixed ability, whether they come from another place. We need to have, you know, whether they're our First Nation people, most importantly. We need to be sitting at the table together. And I think that's a really cool thing, and it's happening more, but maybe next year we'll get to hear and we'll all feel a bit better about that too. So have a lovely, safe journey home. So many beautiful things that have happened. Don't forget that for every hard statistic that we've heard and we keep hearing, remember that saying is, if we don't hear that, then we're a bit stupid, right? But if we don't see all the good people at the same time doing incredible things, then we're heartless. And so we have to put those two things together to find this deliberate optimism. And I love it because it's intelligent. Deliberate optimism is not because we're silly or stupid and we're deciding to choose a Pollyanna version of the truth. It's we take everything into account, but choose to be deliberately optimistic. And that's what powers us moving forward, and especially our conversations with the community. Costa's final word is... I have a microphone.
Off the back of that, yeah, I think, as Cate just said, it isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about having the mayo squeeze bottle and just putting the mayo over the top of a very ordinary piece of sushi to try and make it look sexy. Which you see happen. You see it happen. I see it happening on every meal these days. Like, doesn't matter. You go to any, you know, so many places, and they just put mayo on the top of everything. And we've got to step back from that squeeze bottle and be exactly what you said, which is that deliberate optimism is based on the science, it's based on the heart, and it's based on the intent as well. And when we think like that, then we can be inclusive, because we're not just getting, you know, what's that Dutch whole egg mayonnaise that people sort of froth over. We don't need it. I say pull back on the mayo, and let's really look at... Because some people call me a mayo man, and I go, no, I'm not a mayo man. I'm just deliberately positive with story to back it up, and I don't need a lot of information. We just need essence, intent, science, and action. So yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that, and I'll put the squeeze bottle down.
Thanks, Steve. Give yourself a big hand.